Welcome back for another top 2 video. I'm going to share my book recommendations at a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level. Today's topic is Lament. I'm Dr. Carmen Imes, professor of Old Testament at Baylor University, author and speaker. Today I'm not in a great mood, and I decided that today would be a good day to talk to you about the books that have helped me most on the topic of lament. Before we begin, I want to lay a little bit of groundwork for this topic. There are many Christians out there who think that our job is to put a happy face on and say that we're okay, even when we're not. But the Bible actually invites us repeatedly to express our sorrow to God and to one another. And there are some books that have helped me a lot on this topic. I'm going to start with 2 that are very easy to read, entry-level expositions of the idea of lament. The first one is this book, little tiny book, Cascade Companion book by Rebekah Eklund on practicing lament. Rebekah is a New Testament scholar, and she's writing about lament in the New Testament, which is not often something that you see in the literature. Most literature on lament in the Bible focuses on the book of Lamentations or the lament Psalms or maybe the book of Job. But Rebekah shows that there's lament even in the New Testament and demonstrates that it's faithful for Christians to pray lament. Another book that has ministered to me is this one by Michael Card, A Sacred Sorrow, Reaching Out to God in the Lost Language of Lament. I'm going to share with you just one quote from his book. He says, "People like Job, David, Jeremiah, and even Jesus reveal to us that prayers of complaint can still be prayers of faith. They represent the last refusal to let go of the God who may seem to be absent, or worse, uncaring. If this is true, then lament expresses one of the most intimate moments of faith. Not a denial of it. It is supreme honesty before a God whom my faith tells me I can trust." That's one nugget from his good book. So those are 2 entry-level books on lament. I hope they're a blessing to you. If you want to dig a little bit deeper into lament, then I have 2 recommendations for you, but the first one comes with a warning. I have assigned this book to my students to read, and I invariably get students who love the book and other students who are very alarmed by it and concerned by it. So I want to tell you why I'm recommending it and for whom I'm recommending it, and then why it sometimes frustrates readers. So the book is Soong-Chan Ra's book, Prophetic Lament, A Call for Justice in Troubled Times. Dr. Ra is a professor of church growth and evangelism, and he has so many insights about the ways that lament are essential to be able to move forward, that we as a society are not healthy when we just cover up the problems of the past, but we need to look them full in the face and allow ourselves to lament. The reason why so many students have thanked me for assigning this book is because it deals with the very hot topic and important issue of racism. That's also the reason why other students have been troubled by it, particularly white students have been troubled by it because he doesn't offer a whole lot of hope for how we can get past racism. So that is I would say the weakness of this book is that it's not very hope-filled, but I do think he takes an unflinching look at racism and helps us to see some of the problems that riddle our world. So that's why it lands on my recommended list. It's very thought-provoking. Now for my top recommendation on the middle shelf, and I'll be honest, this one, you don't have to be a seminary student or advanced student to read this. It really is entry level. My mom has no advanced education. She didn't go to college, doesn't have a theological degree, and this was her favorite book that she's read over the past couple of years. So this is Michelle Keener's book, Comfort in the Ashes, Explorations in the Book of Job to Support Trauma Survivors. So she's reading the biblical book of Job through the lens of trauma theory and looking at the ways that Job has experienced trauma and how he tries to resolve his trauma by crying out to God. She taught me so much about the way trauma works. Everybody talks about trauma or PTSD these days, but very rarely has someone sat down and said, okay, here's what I mean by trauma, and here's why it's so hard for us to overcome it. And here is how God meets Job in the midst of his trauma. If you are a trauma survivor, this would be a great book for you to read. And most importantly, if you work with trauma survivors at any level, if you're a professor, parent, friend, pastor who encounters people who've gone through traumatic experiences, this book will help so much in equipping you to respond well and to understand the journey that your loved one is on. So highly, highly recommend this one by Michelle Keener. Okay, and now for our last two recommendations. These are top shelf, but not in the sense of maybe some of my other book videos. These are not out of reach for the average seminary student or even a motivated undergraduate student. These aren't like doctoral level necessarily, but they are the deepest and longest of any of the books on lament that I'm sharing, which is why I'm putting them in this category. So the first one is Emmanuel Katongole's book, Born from Lament: The Theology and Politics of Hope in Africa. This is such a good book. He has so many insights about lament. I'm going to share a couple of them with you. He says, "It is not those who lack faith who complain, but those recognized for strong faith who bring their most honest and passionate feelings to God." And then, this is what I found most startling and most insightful in the whole book. He says, "In the end, the loss of lament, that is, if we refuse to lament, signals a loss of passion for social justice. A church that has lost its nerve to lament before God will likely lack the nerve to confront oppression and be prone to support the status quo." I think he's right about this. This is the same thing that Soong-Chan is trying to get at in his book, but I feel like Katongole gets at that same idea from a more hopeful perspective and offers a path forward. Now, some of you are going to love it that I just read that quote. Some of you are going to be like, what does she mean by social justice? So let me just say, by social justice, I think he means that our society becomes a place where people are truly treated with dignity as fellow human beings, and that there aren't wrongs that have failed to be righted. So people living at peace with God and with each other and living rightly with each other. When we fail to lament or refuse to lament, we lose the energy to confront the ways that we and our institutions and our communities have failed each other and failed to make spaces for all of us to thrive and flourish. So I felt like that was really great insight from Katongole. Now for my last recommendation, this is a high recommendation from me. This is a book by my friend Trevor Laurence called Cursing with God: The Imprecatory Psalms and the Ethics of Christian Prayer. Now, there are a lot of Christians who like parts of the Psalms, but when they come to the Psalms where the psalmist is calling upon God to bring harm on someone else, or where the psalmist describes what they want God to do to their enemies, Christians are like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I probably can't pray this. This sounds very Old Testament. It doesn't sound like something Jesus would say. Laurence makes a very compelling case that not only should Christians read and pray these prayers, but that if we don't, our Christian maturity is underdeveloped, that we have failed to fully realize God's character and actions in the world. So let me give you just a snippet from the end of the book. He does a lot of work to show how the imprecatory psalms are not incompatible with Jesus' command to love our neighbor as ourselves and to even love our enemy. And I think he does such a good job of explaining why these psalms work. They are not, in effect, violent psalms. They are psalms calling upon God to bring judgment where judgment is due. He says this: "We live in a world full of violence and injustice, where the wicked oppress the innocent, oppose God's kingdom, and corrupt God's creation. Rather than holding in our anger or pain or taking vengeance into our own hands, God invites us to pray, to cry out to him to keep his promises, to execute judgment, to protect his people, and to finally make his world his holy dwelling." One of the strengths of this book is that Laurence is an amazing writer. He just has beautiful prose, and he shows how the whole Bible is this beautiful story of God's self-revelation in the world. And he shows how the imprecatory psalms participate in that, how they relate to Jesus, and how we can retrieve them faithfully and fruitfully as the church. So I hope that's whetted your appetite. As a reminder, you can order any of these books from Hearts and Minds Bookstore. there's a link in the description below, and Byron and Beth Borger will give you 20% off your order. I'm not getting a kickback from them. I just really like them, and I want you to be able to access these books at a good price from somebody who's a real person who cares about their customers. And so that's my recommendation. I hope that you have a great week, and I would love to hear more suggestions from you about what kind of book recommendations you would like, what categories you want me to talk about. And in the meantime, let's get reading.